My name is Adriana Evans, and originally I'm from Patuxent River, Maryland, but I'm in a military family, so technically you're not really from anywhere. You just hop around to different places, so I just say I'm from San Diego. And I just recently graduated college, so I'm officially an alumni, and part-time on my couch, just trying to recover from the semester. So originally I was Church of God in Christ, Kojic, which is basically like, with my friends I say, if you've ever seen any Medea movie, it's basically exactly like that. Very strict by the book. There wasn't really much room for error or kind of like shifting or adding a belief into the church. So basically, I would kind of make a joke with my siblings. It's like a 9-to-5 job, because you would go to the early Sunday morning program, then you would have the regular day church program, and then you would go home for like a break or dinner, and then come back and end up having to go back to the night service, which would end around 8, and then you would have school the next morning. So that was definitely, it was fun, like as a kid, having to like go back and forth all the time, but it was definitely a routine. I remember one day I asked the assistant pastor, because it's not that questions weren't allowed, it was just that if you asked too many questions, you would get kind of pushed off a little bit. So I originally started out in the younger kids class. I think I was around like 13 or so at this time, and that was the age range of the little kids course. And then I asked too many questions, so they moved me to the women's course, and I asked even more questions there, and the assistant pastor actually taught in that course. So when I was asking him certain areas in the Bible where in the Old Testament God said this is allowed, but then in the New Testament there would be an individual that would say, no, this is a sin, I was kind of wondering, well, why did it change? Does this person have that kind of authority? And why isn't it like consistent? And when I got brushed off and they kind of made a joke about it, I was kind of like, oh, well, I don't think that's kind of right. Let me look more into it. And that's actually when I first started wearing hijab, because I looked in the New Testament and there was a verse that said either the women shave their heads or they cover. And I didn't think I could pull off the bald look, so I was like, okay, let's just cover. And I definitely got like a lot of questions from people, especially in the church, saying like, oh, like, why are you covering? And then I would show them the Bible verse and they'd be like, oh, okay, well, we don't really like follow that. And I'm like, why are you gonna preach with like a Bible in your hand, but then not go verbatim to his teachings? So yeah. So the more I was researching into the Bible, I started finding different verses that would kind of conflict with each other, or the church just wouldn't follow because it just didn't behoove them to. Like for breakfast, we like had bacon all the time, and it made me feel sick as a little kid, so I just didn't eat it. But then I was like, well, in the Bible, it talks about things with a split hoof, and that eats could, like you're not necessarily supposed to eat certain things. And so I was like, well, I want to follow Christianity, but I want to follow it more verbatim to what it's asking me to do. So then that's when I was like, okay, let's go into Orthodox Christianity. And that's where I started doing more of the kneeling in my prayers. And I was pretty much what people would say Catholic, but I saw it as Orthodox Christianity, and then I just kept on the scarf. After that, I went to community college because I had graduated from high school. And excuse me, when I ended up going into community college, it was full of a variety of Muslims from different ethnicities and cultures. And I was like, why does everybody keep saying Assalamu alaikum to me? Because I did not know what it meant. I didn't know how to respond. And they would get insulted. I wouldn't say anything back. So I'd just be like, hello. And they started saying, oh, like you're Christian. We don't see a lot of individuals covering. Did you know that Muslims also cover? But in our church, being Muslim wasn't like a good thing, because there were sermons saying, oh, they pray to Mohammed like we pray to Jesus. Muhammad's a god to them, so don't even go near a mosque. So that was like a big thing in our family that you just didn't do. And when my friends started talking to me, I was just like, oh, well, it kind of like sparked kind of like a match, like, hey, like let's look into things. You're in college, you might as well just add to the list of books you're reading. And then that's when my friend gave me a book called Misguided. And in the book, basically the individual talked about the Nicene Creed and how the Bible was developed and how the pagans became involved in what the state ruled to be the state religion of Christianity, and how a lot of the teachings of Jesus were altered in order to get the pagans to join in and to be more a participatory state. So it was definitely whenever they talked about people that when it gets to Christians, they wanted to make it more current with the times, and Muslims were in the news, so they were saying, you know, Fox News has it right, so pay attention to them, which definitely don't even watch them anymore. And when I would hear just negative things, I was like, aren't we supposed to be like uplifting towards other people? And then when I found out that Islam was part of the Abrahamic religions, I did some reading on it, and my friend also told me that. It just kind of like made me interested in like, okay, what's this all about? Because there's too many commonalities, especially the individual that was telling me about it. Her name in English was Mary. So I was like, why would your parents name you after the mother of Jesus if like there wasn't some kind of relation in the two religions? My journey to becoming Muslim was mainly through the reading, through the book Misguided, and just seeing it laid out what Christianity was about and what Judaism was about. Because I pretty much at that time was like, well, I don't necessarily want to I don't want to be agnostic. I would rather have like a religion to follow, and it's pretty much going to be one of the three like Abrahamic religions. And Judaism and like some of the different sects, they don't believe in like Jesus being a prophet. And that was a really big thing for me, because even though I wasn't necessarily going to keep being a Christian, like Jesus was a big, played a huge part for me. So I wanted to make sure he was incorporated, his teachings were incorporated. And then when I found out that Mohammed, peace be upon him, was inspired by like the teachings of Jesus and the prophets before him, peace be upon them all, I was like, wow, that's actually like a beautiful thing that he developed a religion and a way to practice life that didn't take away from any of the prophets. It added to them, and it made sure that their message wasn't lost in a new political realm. It was definitely difficult once I decided, hey, Islam might be a thing in my life, especially within the Black community, because Muslims are the primary thing that a lot of Black communities know is Nation of Islam. And they're like, okay, that was a movement, it's not really a religion. So then when you hear about Sunni and Shia Muslims, they're just like, okay, they have no relation in my life. And so when I would be around them and covered in scarves saying, hey, I'm interested in Islam, it was just kind of like, well, you should rethink that if you still want to be known as an African American in this community. So that was kind of hard, especially when it came to like family. I actually had an interesting instance where I was at my grandfather's funeral, and I had a family member to come up to me and say, unless you want to be in hell, we advise you to change your religion because there's nothing good about it, and I want you to like lay in peace where your grandfather's laying in peace. And at that moment, like, I felt very upset, but something just kind of came over me, and I told them thank you, and they were kind of confused, like, why are you thanking me? And I was like, even though you're coming at me with negativity, like, it's coming from a place in your heart where you think is good, and I thank you for wanting to pray for me and wanting to care for me, and just kind of show me, regardless of whether or not people agree with you, to come at them in a peaceful manner, because it doesn't behoove anybody to like combat negativity with negativity. I'm a big person where if I don't think that I can follow through on something, I won't commit. So I started practicing being a Muslim for about half a year, and I was already going to the lectures, to different like women's programs on campus and off and at the mosque. And then eventually my friend was like, do you just want to take your Shahada? And I completely forgot, because I was like, I'm already Muslim, I already say the Shahada like in my prayers and du'as and everything. And then I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And I actually took my Shahada in a Sunni mosque, which was really interesting because of where I'm at now, and seeing like how things were in the past. It's kind of interesting to see the growth that's happened. I feel like a lot of times things happen for me to have like an awakening or enlightenment through other people. I was riding in a vehicle with my friend, and I was talking about Muhammad Ali because I love boxing, MMA, all that. And she didn't hear the Muhammad part. She heard Ali, and I was like, you know, great example for individuals. You know, we should definitely incorporate him into like our lives and his thoughts and things like that. And she was like, what are you talking about? She was like, well, girl, I don't know where you're getting your information from, but I need you to be careful. And I was just like, you don't like Muhammad Ali? And she was like, oh, no, I thought you said Ali. I thought you meant like what the devil worshippers do. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, they hit themselves, they harm themselves, they pray to Ali, they basically make a mockery of Islam. She's like, make sure you don't follow those people. And in that instance, just hearing like the words that she said, I was like, wow, that sounds a lot like the sermons in church when they were bashing another ideology. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna look into them. And then I kept researching and researching, and of course I had a lot of Muslim friends at that time, so I asked one of them, oh, do you know about like these Shia people? And she was like, yeah, I'm Shia, and it was a separate friend. And I was like, okay, can you give me like basically the down low, like what's going on? Why do Sunnis hate you? Because I just hear nothing but negativity. And then she started to just let me know, hey, like this is what I believe in, this is what we do. And then it became questions like, oh, why do Shias cry during certain events? Why do they feel this way or that way? And the thing I love about her, and this is like my best friend now, she definitely encourages me not to follow what other people are saying. So she would tell me, oh, we do these things and there's so much benefits in them, but then she would leave it at that. She wouldn't say, you should do it, or I'm bringing you here. And not to bash any of my Sunni friends, but a lot of times, like, that's what would happen. It wouldn't really be something I wanted to do or of my will. It was more of what they were wanting me to do. Like the first time I prayed, like with the congregation, was because one of my friends was forcing me to, and I felt very uncomfortable because I was just like, what? She's like, but you'll get blessings for it, it's good. And, or if they were like, oh, you have to make sure you stay up to this time of night and make dua, and then I was like, oh, my knees are kind of hurting. They're like, even if it bleeds, it doesn't matter. Like, I was like, this is kind of really extreme. And I mean, it's good to be devoted to your religion, but I think it's good to also be aware of like the health benefits, the like risks and different things of that. So a main reason as to why I became Shia was one day I was just going through YouTube, just researching into Shias, and I came across Dr. Amar's lectures. And when he was talking about what the Prophet did when he's at Ghadir, and he was telling individuals like, hey, what I'm going to leave you with is, and this is vital, please listen, is the Quran and Ahl Bayt. And when I heard that, I was like, wait, what? Because all the Sunnis are like, it's Sunnah, you follow Sunnah, everything like that. So first thing I did was I paused it, and in the lecture, it's about like an hour or so long, but really beneficial. He tells you where to look, and I went online, and because they had an online copy of it, and it said the Quran and the Ahl Bayt. And I was like, oh my gosh. And at that moment, I messaged my friend. I was like, by the way, I think I'm going to be a Shia from now on. And not only that, but just knowing that the Prophet's family, peace be upon them all, are so important to Prophet Muhammad's just whole like existence. Like he left behind something so precious, and for us to not even consider remembering them or following them as an example, or just forgetting them because you're afraid you might be labeled as something, I think that's one, dangerous, and two, it's ignorant, because you follow a prophet but yet you won't follow his family that was also righteous. Dr. Amar was also associated with some things from like the Ahl Bayt, so TV, so that kind of led me into that. And on days when I was in college and I was just kind of over the whole political thing that was going on and just the climate and classes and tests, I was like, I just need something to take my mind off. And then I would go to the documentary page on like Ahl Bayt TV or to the archives and things like that. And it was just like a getaway to just become more knowledgeable, and it would kind of, I don't know if this makes sense, but it just kind of calmed my soul, because I was just like, I'm so wrapped up in this world, but this kind of brings me back to like solid ground where it's like, hey, like, yeah, life is tough, but here's some people who went through harder things, so you can get through it. I think I officially became a Shia, I would say about a year ago. So it's been a while. After I became Shia, in terms of the individuals I hung out with that were Sunni, in the beginning, I just kind of didn't tell them. It wasn't that I was hiding anything, because if anything, I was proud about it, but I didn't know how they would react. And we do a lot of collective things on campus together, so I need everybody in a good frame of mind. But once I started to bring like the torba to pray on, I would definitely get a lot of looks, or if I went to go pray, people would kind of move their rugs over, and I was just like, okay, you need space, that's fine. But at the same time, it made me more humble in being a Shia, because I was like, again, regardless of like what others do, like follow what you know is right. So there was that. In the Shia community, I actually experienced nothing but like love from people. Some shock once they see that I'm African American, because they're just like, well, that's kind of weird, but part of my ancestry is I'm Nigerian, so I'm like, that's not like foreign to them. There's a lot of Shia Muslims, and so when I let them know that, it kind of makes them more knowledgeable, because they're like, hey, first we didn't know there were darker skin like Shias, and also, hey, like there's also different places across the world that they are, and this is just another reason to like unite and have a better, stronger community. In terms of different places to go where there's lots of like Shia events, I would just definitely say the Imam Ali Center, like you were saying, for the Noor Collective. And there's also a place, like I'm in tune with military bases, so there's one in Miramar, off Miramar Road, literally across the street from the military base. And it's actually pretty cool because it's a Sunni program in the morning, and then it's a Shia program later on. And I believe they speak English. I know it's primarily Farsi, but it's a good mix between the two. And also just individuals' homes. Like earlier I was messaging a group of girls, and they were saying, oh, we're about to like come over to the mosque and things like that. And we call ourselves the Wednesday night group, basically. And that's because like on Wednesday nights you can go and like just meet up with them and just speak about your concerns and just feel comfortable. So that really gave me a sense of community. Within the Shia community, I think it's important not to, I don't want to say judge, but to perceive a person before you know things about them. Because I know a lot of times some people will see me and they'll just go to pray and won't ask me because they think I'm Sunni. I'm like, oh no, I'm Shia. And they're like, oh, grab your rug. So I think definitely not alienating people. And I know culture is definitely a big thing, and it's something that should be treasured by individuals. But if it's rooted in treating people in a prejudiced manner or in the oppression of others, I think it's very important to separate religion from culture. In terms of my family, specifically my parents, first and foremost, they always make sure that I know that I'm very much loved and supported. But in the beginning, I know it was tough for both of my parents, because I think for any parent that brings up their kids with a belief or especially a religion, and the child diverts from that, especially if it's children that divert from that, a lot of times there's that thought, where did I fail? Like, what did I do wrong? And also kind of like, oh, well, that's their life now. And I think it's important, like for anybody going through that, to know, hey, like there's always going to be that common ground, and that's that you're blood and that there's love within that. So for my parents, for my father, it was difficult for him, and I think he had to figure out, how am I going to address my daughter in different ways, because she has new beliefs and new requirements. And it was tough for him at first, and it was a bit difficult, but later on he started asking more questions. And now whenever I come over, he goes to the halal store and he's like, I got you some food so you can eat. And I'm like, I appreciate that, because I think like for my family, food is wherever we break bread is wherever we break conversation. And it's like anything that's been wrong can be built back again. And for my mother, when I first became like a Sunni Muslim, I came home and told her I took my Shahada. And she knew beforehand what that was, because I told her, oh, these are the things that Muslims do. And she just looked at me, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm about to get kicked out of the house. And I was like, I should have packed my bag before I got home. And then she told me, you know what this means, right? And I was like, that I'm gone? She was like, no, you need to make sure you get with a good, solid group of women that are having the same goals as you, that they want to pursue their religion, but also a good career and also a good education. And they're not just about drama. They want to like really build themselves into a better person. She's like, you need to make sure that you go to any lectures that they have. You can borrow my car if you want to. She's like, I need a list of any of the halal food places that you need and whatever prayer times, because unfortunately I had some situations where people tried to, I don't want to say attack, but pretty much attack me while I was praying. And they didn't know, because I have a very big family. I have 6 brothers and 1 sister. So of course when I'm praying by myself, well, my family's military, so they like more covert things. So they were in a corner, saw the men approaching me, and were like, no, cut that mess out. So because of that, my family became very protective. So my mom was like, I need a list of like your prayers, or like an app so I can see it, so I can get you to a safe location to pray. So alhamdulillah, like I definitely love my parents for that, and inshallah they're rewarded for the struggle they had to go through and for every single thing that they do for me. One thing that I think it's important for individuals to remember is that whether you're an individual just wanting to search out religion to become knowledgeable of the people around you, whether you're wanting to become a Muslim or you just want to be an advocate for individuals, I think it's important to learn and to know that just because you're obtaining knowledge doesn't mean you have to follow through with the practice. It just means that you're making yourself less ignorant and more susceptible to becoming a better person. So when it comes to Islam, I would definitely say be open to hearing about what the community is going through so that you can kind of get a sense of the direction that things are going in, politically or otherwise, culturally. And to not always believe what's happening in the media. Kind of go to your local mosque and say, hey, can I talk to these individuals? Or do you have a program where I can just ask questions and things like that? Definitely become knowledgeable so that you can just become a better person.